It's turning drier, but will there be any further thunderstorms? It's also turning warmer, but will there be an official UK heatwave? Those are the two main questions I'm going to be taking a look at in this week's Met Office Deep Dive, your weekly dose of in-depth meteorology. If you like these forecasts, they can only be found on our YouTube channel, so I do encourage you to subscribe so you don't miss them coming out each week. And also hit like, comment, ask us a question. We'll try our best to answer in the comments. And please do share the love. Tell your friends and family, particularly if they love talking about the weather, that in-depth forecasts can be found right here from the Met Office YouTube channel. Now, in last week's deep dive, Alex was talking about summer, or the lack of summer, and he was on a mission to find it. Now, in this week's deep dive, I think I have found it, but it's not entirely plain sailing, and there are a few interesting things to consider in the next 20 minutes or so. For starters, let's take a look at the bigger picture and how we got here in the first place. We are currently below average in terms of June temperatures. Rainfall has been closer to average this month, but certainly temperatures at the moment for June so far have been running at about 2 degrees below average across the country. First 10 days of June we had a cool northerly flow, and those winds straight from the Arctic persisting for quite some time brought some snow to the highlands of Scotland and also significantly below average temperatures. Now, we've lost those Arctic winds in the past few days, but we're still sitting to the north of the jet stream, which is normally a cool place to sit in the summer, and it's often a showery place to sit. So as we've been sitting in this, what we call upper trough, this kink in the jet stream, we've seen relatively cool air and frequent showers across the country. In fact, Tuesday afternoon, northern England, parts of the Midlands are directly under the axes of that upper trough, and that's why there's a thunderstorm warning for hit and miss downpours for parts of northern England and the North Midlands. But we're going to lose that upper trough over the next 24 hours or so. Watch as it moves away, and that's helped by this strengthening and slightly flatter jet stream coming out of the Atlantic. That's going to help to move along the upper trough, and as you can see, it pushes into Iberia. And over the UK instead, we got this ridge in the jet stream. The jet stream pushes to the north of the country for Wednesday, bringing fine settled conditions for many. But that flatter jet stream, it's got some oomph to it, and it will bring some weather systems to northern parts of the UK, most notably northern Scotland, where we'll see some showery rain and some strengthening winds during Wednesday into Thursday. And then another low turns up with, again, this pulse in the jet stream, bringing that low to the north of the UK and sending a couple of weather fronts in as we end the working week. So some rain into western parts as we begin Friday. As that crosses the country, it tends to weaken. And by this stage already, the jet stream's taking another slightly different shape. It's, again, flatter than it has been, but it's also starting to push to the north of the UK. Good news if you're looking for summer weather, or at least something a little more settled, drier and warmer, because as that jet stream pushes to the north of the UK, we're now on the warm side of the jet stream. We're also seeing the influence of higher pressure building in from the Azores. This is called the Azores High, and that's because it typically sits near the Azores. But in the summer, if it extends towards the UK, that's when you can get widely fine and bright and warm weather across the country. So through the next few days, the jet stream is changing shape. It's becoming flatter, which helps to push that upper trough away, taking the showery conditions with it. But it's also then eventually moving to the north of the UK to allow more widely settled and warmer weather. Let's just take a quick look at the day-to-day detail, because there will be some things to talk about each day. Now, for the rest of Tuesday, as you can see, northern parts of England into the North Midlands subject to quite a few showers. But as that upper trough moves away, here's the picture for Wednesday. Widely fine weather. However, that flatter jet stream, as I mentioned just to the north of the UK. It's going to send some showery rain into the northwest of Scotland and some strong winds as we end Wednesday. But by the time we go into Thursday, that's moved out of the way. This is the start of Thursday. As you can see, widely fine weather across the UK, some patchy cloud here and there. Always a chance of the odd shower into the far south. And actually, what you can see there near Paris are some very lively showers later Thursday and moving up to the Low Countries into the start of Friday. More on that in a moment, so don't go anywhere if you want to find out a bit more about those showers and thunderstorms. Otherwise, for most of the UK, it's fine on Friday at first before the cold front that I mentioned. That's coming into the west, thickening cloud, outbreaks of rain. And as that crosses the country on Saturday, it turns to showers and it's a relatively weak affair. So, yeah, it's a mostly settled picture over the next few days, but there are some showers to think about, and also some patchy cloud and a breeze in the far north of Scotland. Now, those showers and thunderstorms that I mentioned over the continent are most likely to stay away from the UK, but it's not a guarantee. Let's take a look at that again. From the bigger picture, we've got that upper trough that I mentioned. It's being pushed away, but as you can see, later Wednesday, it's digging down over Iberia, and if we put the rainfall on, you can see it's causing an awful lot of showers and thunderstorms over initially Iberia, and then this showery activity starts to move up. So that's Thursday, chance of some showers in the far south. But watch this clump of showers moving north eastwards across France into Central Europe, and it's associated with this flabby area of low pressure. So the ingredients there, not only do you have the jet stream intensifying this area of low pressure and some heavy rain, some thunderstorms, you've also got a marked temperature contrast, some heat across central parts of Europe colliding with cool air across much of France and the UK. Now, the Met Office model is sending that rain away from the UK. It's moving northeast across central parts of Europe. And in fact, the European model has the same idea. So this, it might not look too clear on the screen there, but basically this is the UK right here in the middle, and this is Denmark, and just south of Denmark we've got the area of low pressure I mentioned there. And that's in roughly the same place on the European model, that's what this is showing, as the Met Office model. So that's in agreement. But we don't just run these computer models once, we run them lots of times. And one of the simulations of the European model has that low pressure much closer to the UK. So there it is in two parts of East Anglia and the southeast. And in fact, when we run the Met Office model lots and lots of times, here's just a selection of those different computer model runs, with each run showing different rainfall distribution here on the screen. These are known as postage stamps for obvious reasons. And the UK is somewhere in the middle. Might not be that obvious on the screen, but just want to point out that there are a couple of these runs that have some heavy rain over East Anglia in the southeast. For example, this one, member 31, member 26 here, has some white colours across East Anglia in the southeast, which would indicate 32 millimetres or more in the space of 6 hours. Most of these don't have any rain at all over East Anglia in the southeast, but a few of them do. So it's an idea that we can't entirely discount from the computer models. In fact, as I mentioned, the Met Office main model run doesn't have any of that rain or the thunderstorms across the southeast on Friday. Neither does the European model run, but the American main model run does. And this shows the rainfall totals from each of those simulations. This is the Met Office on the left, the European model in the middle, and this is the American model on the right. And this shows the amount of rain we're expecting to accumulate between now and Sunday night. And what you can see is very little rain across eastern England, for example, between now and Sunday night. In the Met Office model on the left, a fair amount of rain there across western Scotland. That's where those weather fronts will be moving in from the northwest. But the European model also very similar. So most of the rainfall there, northwestern parts of the UK, A few showery outbreaks perhaps for the south, but very little for the east of England. By contrast, the American model, which had those thunderstorms just further west to affect East Anglia and the southeast, has 50 mils or so between now and Sunday night. And most of that 50 mils, incidentally, would be falling in a few hours on Friday morning. So what we reckon at the moment, looking at all this different model output, is that there's an 85% chance that those thunderstorms will miss the southeast on Friday. But there's a 15% chance that those thunderstorms will hit East Anglia in the southeast, and it's a chance that we can't entirely discount, and it's a chance that would be very impactful. 50 millimetres of rainfall or more falling in the space of a few hours. So certainly something to keep in mind. Hopefully we'll have a bit more clarity over the next 24 hours when more computer model runs come out. So that's Friday's rain. And the other main talking point this week and into next are the temperatures. So let's just take a look at that. As I mentioned, the jet stream is going to be moving to the north of the UK, and actually not only have we lost that Arctic wind, but we're also going to be sitting on the other side of the jet stream, the warm side. So naturally, we're going to see sunnier skies, and we're going to, well, see rising temperatures as a consequence. What does that look like on here? We skip to day 3, for example. This is Thursday. Skip to day 4, Friday, and day 5, Saturday. And you can see some warmth starting to appear from the west as that higher pressure begins to arrive. These orangey red colours. So as high pressure moves in, we'll get more sunshine, but we're also importing warmer air from the southwest at the same time. Now, temperatures at this stage won't be extraordinary. Sure, on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we could see temperatures exceeding the highest temperature of the year so far, which is something like 27.5 degrees. But we're not looking at temperatures into the 30s just yet. And just to give you an indication of how those temperatures will rise, just get my pen over here. There we go. Just going to draw a little line across the country, and you'll see how the temperature trend will vary. Now, this is, for example, in the Midlands, we're looking at high teens later this week into the low 20s by the weekend. Southeast, 23, it's showing 23 there. This is the raw computer model output. You could probably add a couple of degrees or so onto this, given optimum amounts of sunshine and light winds and so on. But you can see a clear temperature trend upwards later this week and into the weekend. But at the moment, as I say, temperatures up to the mid to high 20s in some of the spots, some of the warmer spots through the weekend and early next week. Just for a bit of comic relief, I don't know if you saw this headline, it kind of went viral from the Daily Mirror. UK to be blasted by 48-hour 26C heatwave with 5 cities in England the hottest. This forecast, incidentally, didn't really come from the Met Office. This was put out last week. But a lot of people found it amusing that 48 hours of 26 Celsius was considered a heat wave, as you can see by some of the comments from people in Australia and Louisiana. You're all weak, that person says. But obviously, the definition of a heat wave is going to vary from place to place around the world. A heat wave, what would be considered a heat wave in Iceland, would be very different to Louisiana and Australia, and it is indeed different to what's considered a heat wave in Scotland compared with the southeast. And this is the official Met Office heat wave definition. And basically, for Met Office purposes, a heat wave is declared if the temperature exceeds a certain temperature 3 days in a row. So the maximum temperature has to exceed a certain temperature 3 days in a row. And that temperature for most of the UK is 25 degrees. Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, Wales and Devon and Cornwall, for example. Then you get into the Midlands and central southern England, and it's 26 degrees. And then across much of the rest of the Midlands, East Anglia, the southeast, it's 27 degrees, except for London and some of these counties to the north of London, Cambridgeshire, Hertfordshire and so on, where it's 28 degrees. So this is obviously based on what we're used to climatologically. These are hotter places in the UK, typically in the summer, and so the threshold is slightly higher. But you'd have to exceed those values 3 days concurrently, and 28 degrees from London to 25 degrees for Scotland. So the question is, as temperatures rise into the start of next week, are we looking at an official heat wave? And the answer is, it's complicated. Let's take a look, first of all, at the probability of 25 Celsius or above. And this shows each day, taking the European model, all those 52 computer model runs, and it shows the probability from all those different simulations of exceeding 25 Celsius each day. This is Tuesday 18th, this is today, this is Wednesday, tomorrow, and then out to Saturday. All these maps are white, basically, although I would say there is a chance, certainly in some spots on Thursday, Friday and Saturday, of exceeding 25 Celsius. But by the start of next week, we're getting these colours appearing on the maps. And certainly on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the colours become a little darker, and that just suggests that through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the chances of exceeding 25 Celsius are greater. And what we would suggest is that certainly it looks likely, as that Azores high builds, as the jet stream sits to the UK, to the north of the UK, that we'll see quite widely across England and Wales temperatures of 25 to 27 or 28 Celsius for at least 2 days at the start of next week, say Monday, Tuesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday or so. Further north, widely settled weather, has to be said, but not as hot across Scotland and Northern Ireland. We're looking at low 20s more widely. But then the probabilities just ease off there for Thursday. And if you were to look at the main operational run of the European model, you could see why. This again is showing the UK about here, and this is the forecast from the high resolution run of the European model for Wednesday the 26th of June around midday. And this has got that Azores high just further west again. It's moved it to the west, and it's got this blue line across southern parts of the UK. That's a cold front with a northerly airflow behind it, so bringing those temperatures back down again after a couple of days of warmth. And then it keeps things cool for the rest of the week. But when you compare that with what the other simulations from the European model are suggesting, it's quite interesting. Now, just this top chart here, this is again the European model output, and it shows the temperature trend. This shows it at 5,000 feet or so, but that's quite a useful place to look at the temperature trend, because it smooths out those day-night differences and any differences to do with mountains and coasts and so on. So it just shows that temperature trend, and it's an upward trend. If you look at the solid line in the middle, at first, it's an upward trend into the start of next week, and then peaks on Tuesday. This is the main high-resolution model run from the European model, and then takes this nosedive back down to current levels. So the heat peaks on Tuesday. But all the other dotted lines on this chart show all the other simulations from the European model run, and a lot of them are to the higher end of that chart. So they keep things warm. They don't peak on Tuesday and then bring them back down. They keep things warm Wednesday into Thursday, and some of them go even higher. Now, what this suggests is that the high-res model run is actually a minority outcome in terms of the 52 simulations. It's a bit of an outlier, and many more of the simulations keep the warmth across the UK. This is Reading, by the way, in the south of England, and some of them even push it even higher. So there's a slim chance that temperatures will get into the low or even mid-30s if some of these warmer simulations were true. But most of them keep things in the mid to high 20s throughout next week. It's just that operational run that has things cooling off once again. And just to show you that that's the case for the whole of the UK, this is Glasgow, and it's even more stark here actually. It's got that nosedive around Wednesday as those northerlies appear in the operational run, but the darker colours here just show that grouping of all the other simulations that keep things warm. So what do we do? When we're faced with that information, we'll look at the reasons why. And this, again, is the high-res run from the European model. But just to give you a sample of what the other simulations are saying and why there's this disparity, here is member 22. It's similar to the high-res run. It's got the cold front to the south of the UK. It's got northerly winds. But there aren't that many, out of the 52, there aren't that many that look like this. Some of them look a bit like this. There's the UK, and there's low pressure over France, and that would suggest warm and perhaps thundery across southern parts. Again, high pressure sitting to the west. This is a relatively minority idea. The most common theme is this sort of thing. I know it's quite complicated with lots of red and blue lines on them. These are weather fronts, but the basic idea from this is that high pressure, instead of sitting to the west of the UK, it pushes to the north and allows this southeasterly airflow across the country, and it keeps the warm plume in place for Wednesday and beyond that into Thursday and Friday. So this is member 29. Member 30 shows a similar sort of thing, higher pressure moving to the northeast and allowing the warmth to arrive from the southeast. So what this suggests to me is that it all depends on where that high pressure ends up. And just to give you an idea of the three most likely pressure patterns for the middle of next week. This looks not just at the European model, but the Met Office model, the American model, takes all those model simulation, dozens and dozens of them, and it comes up with likely scenarios for the middle of next week. And the most likely, or the joint most likely, is for higher pressure to be sitting over the UK, keeping things relatively warm, dry and sunny for many places. But also in that top likelihood category, 19% chance, joint most likely, is for the higher pressure to sink or to push to the northeast of the UK, and this warm plume, so temperature anomalies, that's what these are showing, 2.6 Celsius there in the south, 1.7 Celsius compared with average across Scotland, for example. This is also 19% chance, same as the other one. A less likely chance, this is a 7% chance, is for the higher pressure to push to the west and for this colder northerly flow with temperature anomalies of -1 Celsius compared with climate. So that main run of the European model is looking less likely than other output, which suggests that we'll keep the warmth for more than a couple of days next week. Either way, the signals are relatively weak. This shows the probability of either northerly or southerly winds. So this shows on the top row there the most recent model output on each date going forward out to the next 2 weeks. So the final column is 2nd of July. If the boxes are coloured red, it shows that southerly winds are more likely than northerlies, and if the boxes are coloured blue, northerly winds are more likely. And it's showing quite strong reds through the weekend. That's what this is showing, and into the start of next week. Then the reds get a little bit more faint from the middle of next week and then sort of disappear altogether. But what that does suggest is that southerly winds are slightly more likely than northerly winds, but certainly not a guarantee. And it's an increasing trend when you look back at previous model runs for those reds to become slightly more dominant. Similar sort of chart here, and it shows the likelihood of higher pressure or lower pressure. So in this case, higher pressure is coloured in red. And what this shows is that through next week, we've got the reds. Higher pressure is a little more likely than lower pressure, but certainly those reds aren't dark enough for us to say it's definite. So all in all, what we're looking at through next week is an extension of the Azores high, widely dry, settled and increasingly warm weather. Most likely temperatures in some of the warmer spots in the south, mid to high 20s, low 20s elsewhere across the UK. And then the potential for that higher pressure to move away around the middle of the next week. But where exactly it moves will have a big effect on how high the temperatures will be. Will it turn cooler as the high moves to the west? That's looking slightly less likely than the high pressure moving to the north or northeast and allowing the warmth to continue to arrive from the south. Either way, higher pressure doesn't seem too far away from the UK, so it's likely to say mostly settled. But of course, this time of year, you couldn't rule out thundery downpours whenever you've got heat in the mix. So I hope all that made sense. Of course, Glastonbury is coming up as well, and as I say, conditions look mostly settled at first, but the signals are weak. So we'll keep you updated right here. We'll look at all the different output every day, and we'll hopefully be able to give you a clearer forecast in the next few days and so on. But I hope you enjoyed it this week. That's all from the Meteorologist Deep Dive. Don't forget to hit subscribe, hit like, and send us a comment, send us a question. Bye-bye.